All right, good evening. We're going to go over the E&E Toy Chest Standard Report. So we're just going to go over the general budgeting and components to the toy. So first, we're going to be using the ASTM-F963-17 standard for all of the report. That's what all the testing standards are based on for the toy chest. And we're going to quickly go over some of the components. So first, we have the lid. That's just the basic opening and closing mechanism. It's attached by hinges that connect the lid to the body, and that's what opens and closes the chest. We have the main body, which allows the chest to really function and allow things to be put in. Its main purpose is to store children's toys, so you want to make sure that it's spacious and has enough room for that, but you also want to make sure that the lid closes. And finally, we have the drawers. There's 2 drawers on the bottom that come out and are allowed to have things stored inside of them, which also need to be able to close and open. So looking at the standards for the ASTM standards, we're going to be seeing that section 4.41, which is the toy chest section, has a lot of standards that need to be looked at, including the hinges, the lid support, and just basic closures in general. So you want to make sure that you're testing for the lid being able to close and making sure that you're meeting all of the safety requirements for that. There's also the plastic film test that you want to run. That's the outer casing of the plastic chest. It's a safety thing. You want to make sure that the film that you're using is safe for people, since this is going to be used by children. And other things like stability, since this is a toy that manually sits on the floor because it is big. It's around like 20 inches in length on each side, so it's around 20 pounds too, so it's a very large toy, and obviously there's some things that need to be considered there. And once again, some just basic chemical testing for safety concerns when we're using these plastics. So looking at the budget analysis, we can see that the high-end budget, which includes everything, and everything would need to be tested if the toy were to be produced as is. We can see that certain things like the 4.41 section includes most of the budget, and that adds up to $244 US dollars, that is. And then we can see a low-end budget which removes the plastic film and folding mechanisms test. This is because if you were to remove the hinges for the lid and just make it a sitting lid that just fits right into the top rather than hinged, you can remove that test, thus saving money, which would be beneficial for you to use this standard and this report. And then also for the plastic film, if you remove the plastic film that goes around the outside of the chest, then you can also remove that test as well and make that save money. You're saving roughly around $60 on this report, so it goes down to $185. So that concludes the report. Are there any questions?
So you made some recommendations about potential changes to our toy prototype. If we decide to not implement these changes that you discussed, how will that affect our final price quote?
So as I just went over, if you do not make these changes, you will have the high-end budget. There's very little flexibility with this toy given how little components there are. So if you if you keep everything as is and do not make these design changes, then you will be looking at the $244 high-end budget, since those meet you would need to test for all of those standards.
Great, thank you. And final question, we need to keep cost in mind, but of course we want you to produce a safe product. What do you think is the safest or the greatest safety concern with this particular product?
I would say the greatest safety concern is the lid closure. So as I said, the toy is very large, roughly around 20 pounds. So I would say the biggest safety concern is the inner cavity where the toys are stored being so big in that a child could get in and then potentially lock themselves in the chest